Slow Food is an international grassroots movement that began in Italy about 30 years ago. We have a presence in over 150 countries in the world with local chapters in cities and towns all over those countries. And we promote good, clean, and fair food for all. Our network is vast and robust, and we have everything from chefs to school garden educators and beekeepers and fish harvesters and all of the sectors and layers of good, clean, and fair food for all, and some really, really amazing people in our network who are doing awesome work in their local communities and schools and oceans and so on. The Thursday Slow Food Live sessions, if this is your first Slow Food Live session, welcome. We've started this as soon as the stay-at-home order started to come in as a way for you all to engage in slow food while you're home, and also because all things slow food are especially relevant right now. We are so lucky and grateful that the Slow Food School Gardening Committee has really taken up our Thursday sessions to bring you gardening sessions when I think more people than ever are gardening at home. So these have been really cool sessions for beginner gardeners and folks that have been gardening for a while. I've been gardening for a while and I have learned lots every single Thursday so far. So today we're going to talk about biodiversity and the Plant a Seed campaign. Yesterday was Earth Day. It was the 50th Earth Day, which I think is amazing and also very interesting to see what has changed in the last 50 years or not. And as a response and in celebration of Earth Day, we're focusing on planting a seed and what you can do to increase biodiversity in your little world, because biodiversity is good for the earth. So before I go on too long, I do want to let you know that the Plant a Seed campaign is happening right now. We're getting close to being out of kits, but we've still got them. So if you go onto our website and navigate to the Plant a Seed page, which I'll put a link in the chat in just a moment, you can grab a kit, use the code SLOWFOODLIVE for free shipping. And you can get gardening after you watch this video with some really cool seed varieties. And if you have a question during the session, please put your question in the Q&A box. If you're watching on Zoom, you'll see a chat box and a Q&A box. The chat box is where all your love and sentiments go, and then throw those questions in the Q&A and we'll answer them as we go along. Before I go any further, I want to introduce Kim and Lauren, who are with us today. Thank you, ladies, so much for being with us today. I will let you tell our audience a little more about yourselves and what your background is and what your garden activity is in your life. So maybe we can start with either of you, whoever wants to jump in.
Go ahead, Lauren. You get your biodiversity.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm Lauren Zappone Maples. I live in Austin, Texas. I am the founder and executive director of PEAS. We're Partners for Education, Agriculture, and Sustainability. We are working locally with 19 school gardens. We have one community farm on one campus, and then 18 schools that we provide academic support to. We are an in-school program that takes place during the school day, and now it's taking place through distance learning. Our community farm's been going since 2011, and I started that as a parent with my kids' school, and it just kind of exploded from there. But we love growing stuff. We are a very lucky community because of where we live. We can generally grow year round. We often pause in July and August because it's just so hot out here, but we certainly get the lucky winter months. We can grow awesome green stuff all through the winter. And so it makes it really nice to go along with our school garden programming. School year and garden year here are basically aligned. So we're super lucky. And I will talk more about biodiversity in just a minute. I'm gonna let Kim introduce herself first.
Okay, I am Kim Aman, and my students call me Farmer Kim. I am the co-chair of the Slow Food USA School Garden Network. I work in Dallas, Texas in school gardens, and I help nationally with different programs. I wrote curriculum for Whole Kids Foundation and American Heart Association, and I work with Grow North Texas, building a stronger community through the food system in Dallas. So, and I was a teacher for 30 years and retired, and I got to retire into like the dream job of being a farmer Kim in the garden. So I work with about 3,500 kids a month. And so I'm working to build that next year to keep growing whenever we can get back to school.
Excellent. Thank you both. So we've got the cream of the crop here with us in our garden network, and I'm super grateful for that. Before we jump into, Kim has made a video all about the Plant a Seed Kit seeds and the different varieties and seeding them a little bit. And then Lauren has made a video about biodiversity in her own yard, and there's an awesome activity for kids in there. So we're gonna put that at the end of the our video sequence so that you guys can head off into the garden and yard after this is over. Before we jump into any of that though, we're going to quickly talk about what biodiversity is and why it matters. So to do that, we're going to call in the one and only Isabella Rossellini, not live, unfortunately, but we have a great video from her that Slow Food did a while back, and she has the most charming description of what biodiversity is and why it matters. So I'm going to pull us over there just for 2 minutes, and then we'll come back, and Kim and Lauren will talk a little bit more about what biodiversity is and why it matters, and then we'll take your questions and answer your questions before we move on to their videos.
This is what we do. Diversity. This is the eggs that you buy at the supermarket. They're all the same color. Incredibly, they are more or less the same weight. And these are my eggs. See? Diversity. Not only different colors, but also individuality. Like I would say, Isabella, she is Italian, but I have a different nose, a different mouth, different eyes than another woman from Italy. And that's the same here. You can have a little person, bigger person, a more oval, a more rounded one, or a more elongated one. This is biodiversity. With climate change or whatever other things that could happen, an illness, a new virus, it's very important to have diversity because they think that diversity is what guarantees the survival.
Now, at this point, you can look up statistics. They vary a little bit, but both with wildlife, animal species, and plant species, we've lost something like 50% or more of the biodiversity in the world. And of course, it's different depending on where you're looking at, whether it's the United States or the Americas as a whole, or Europe, and so on. So just before we teach you how to plant more biodiversity in your yard, I want to talk about why it's important and why the health of the earth requires biodiversity. So maybe Lauren and Kim, you can jump in there and expand on that a little bit.
Sure, I'd love to start. Well, when we think about the world and we think about it being this complex system, this complex web of life, and each species is dependent on other species for food source primarily. If we remove any piece of that, we don't know the upstream effects of that. We don't know how it's going to affect other organisms that live on that particular species. More specifically, when we're talking about gardening or farms and crops, we are thinking about, well, for example, conventional farming has led to a lot of monocultures where only one plant is planted in vast areas. So if that plant has become susceptible to a certain pest, then it makes the entire area or region of that crop, it puts it in danger and in jeopardy. And for this reason, companies like Monsanto have started a long time ago, trying to genetically modify our plants so they're more resistant to pests. As we know these days, that this genetic modification and all these different pesticides that they've needed to protect these monocultures, these large crops, they've really become damaging to our health, damaging to our soil, and they're wiping out other species. And again, when we lose a species, we don't know how that's going to affect us immediately. Those results may take years and even decades for us to figure out, but it's not going to be a good thing. when we garden at school, the easiest thing for us to do is plant things in different areas and show students, like if we plant a whole bed of kale, in the spring we get a bug called the harlequin beetle, and it comes in and it just, as soon as those brassicas start getting a little stressed from the heat, they come in and they just gobble them up. So if we've planted in different areas, a lot of times we can preserve certain patches for longer because they won't get as big infestations. If we've only planted out one, like our rows are 25 by 4 feet, we usually plant one row of solid greens, but if they're not interspersed with other plants, then those infestations move in very quickly and take out the crops much more quickly. So that's the way we illustrate it with the students in the schools, and you'll see the same things in your home gardens.
Yep. Well, and with the diversity of the Plant a Seed campaign, we have seeds from all over the United States that are not only diverse in their different seeds, their varieties, but also they're diverse in their culture and their history. So there's a lot of lessons to be taught from this wonderful variety of seeds that should grow almost everywhere in the United States. So I'm super excited about that and sharing that and getting those growing.
All right. Okay. Got the right one. And I think it's very interesting because we're talking about plants today. And so, but the same rules apply essentially to all living things. Excuse me. Now my YouTube is doing its own thing. So I think what we want to notice and focus on, we're going to go into Kim's video, which she filmed in her yard with plants, is that within one species, we may not see huge visible differences in the varieties, but as Lauren mentioned, their resistance and their whole way of surviving is different. And so what's really great about some of the varieties Kim is going to show you is that you can see a tomato is a good example. The varieties are very visibly different. And so we're going to go into Kim's video from here and learn a little bit more about the seeds in this year's Plant a Seed kit.
A seed is the part of a seed plant which can grow into a new plant. In our food system today, many historical seeds that celebrate tradition have disappeared. Slow Food USA's Plant a Seed campaign helps to bring awareness and preserve the historical and cultural aspects of these important seeds. Hey garden friends, Farmer Kim here with my nephew Sam.
Hey!
We're going to be talking about our Plant a Seed campaign today. We're super excited because there's some really cool food. Can't wait to get growing. Okay, so we're going to start some seeds in containers before they go in the ground. Some seeds you need to do that with. Tomatoes and peppers are two of the seeds that you'll need to do that. So this is the Cherokee purple, and this is the Chimayo peppers. I'm very excited about both of these. Sam's going to load up the containers with the soil. In there I have regular potting soil, and then I added a little bit of sphagnum moss, and that will help the water retain. You can buy some seed starting medium if you want, but it's not really necessary. So we're going to get these all filled up, and then we'll start planting.
The first method is the seed starter. It's just a bunch of little holes, and you just fill them up with dirt. Next, we have recycled plants holders, and that's the third and second one. Then we have some Dixie cups. These are also great. We have eggshells. If you ever make eggs or something, use these. They could be useful. And then we have the actual egg carton. If you could see there, right here.
So since we're planting two different varieties of seeds, and I don't have any popsicle sticks, I had some painter's tape. So on one half of this, we're going to put the peppers on the painter's tape side and the tomatoes on the other. Then as we plant these two seeds in the other places, we'll be able to tell what the seeds look like when they start to sprout, and we'll be able to identify it by their leaves, because peppers and tomatoes look different when they grow. The Chimayo chili is one of several varieties of the New Mexican chili. The species, which includes bell pepper, jalapeno, and cayenne, originated in southern North America and northern South America and has been grown for centuries. Chilies made their way to New Mexico around 1600, carried north by Spanish conquistadors, and widely distributed among settlers and pueblos in the area. In the century that followed, chili seeds were grown in local patches that developed particular strains and flavors, and often named after where they were developed, as is the case of the Chimayo chili. The unique flavor of the Chimayo puts the chili in high demand, but the great majority of native New Mexican chilies are beloved and consumed locally, and Chimayo chilies can be difficult to obtain outside of New Mexico. So it's a good idea to grow your own. So with the Chimayo peppers, we're going to plant 2 seeds per square because sometimes they don't sprout or germinate. That's what it's called. And so we'll just kind of take a risk, and then we'll figure out which one's the strongest one as they start to grow. On the back, if you read about that, you start it indoors 8 weeks before the transplant date. You put it about 1/4 inch deep, keep it moist, bright light, and it germinates 7 to 14 days. So 1 to 2 weeks, these should be popping up, and then you'll know what's happening. So Sam's gonna put the seeds in the soil, and he'll show you how that's done.
Okay. So you take the seeds and you put them on the edges of here, and then you push them in softly, because you can damage the seeds if you don't.
And should you cover them up?
Yes.
Right. And remember, they're about 1/4 of an inch deep. So the space between this knuckle and this knuckle is 1 inch. So 1/4 of that. So not half, but right in the middle of a half is, and the start is 1/4. So very small depth. And we're doing it on the blue tape side because that's where we'll know where the peppers are. Production of the Cherokee purple tomato traces back to Tennessee. John Green was given seeds from a woman who had gotten them from her neighbors. The neighbors had been growing the tomatoes in their garden for about 100 years after they had been shared with them by Cherokee Indians. So that is how Cherokee purple got its name. It honors the story as well as their unusual dark red, almost purple coloring. The next thing we'll do is our Cherokee purple tomatoes. Delicious. Very excited about that. They're very, very small. We're only going to put 1 per container and just hope for the best and hope that they work out. We're going to do it the same way. We'll do some in this side that's not marked, and then we'll do some in our other containers. So let's do it, Sam.
Okay.
They're tiny.
So they're very small, and we're gonna plant them inside the middle, because with the other seeds, they're bigger, and
We had more.
we had more.
So we're going to be conservative with these. Okay, we've got the soil, we've got the seeds, we've got the sunshine. Next we need
Water.
water. So he's going to water it lightly. Go for it. It's really important that you keep your seeds moist. If they dry out, they won't germinate. They won't start to sprout. So keeping it really moist is important. So he's going to do that, and then we're going to keep it watered. Check it every day. Just make sure it doesn't dry out, and then we wait for 1 week to 2 weeks to see if they sprout. So now we're ready to get growing. Good job, Sam. Hi friends, I'm in one of my favorite places, a school garden. Yay! And today I'm gonna do some seed planting. Jacob's cattle bean is the oldest name given to this variety, also known as the trout or Appaloosa bean. It was first grown in the northeastern United States and southeastern Canada. The Passamaquoddy indigenous people of Maine were said to have given some as a gift to Joseph Clark, the first Caucasian child born in Lubec, Maine in the 1600s. This bean had a very local distribution, limited to the northeastern United States, and particularly Maine. This garden is a history garden, and we have several different varieties of beans growing and some snap peas. So I'm going to add the cattle beans to this garden. I really like this kind of rake because it kind of gives you grooves to plant in, and it loosens up the soil. So I'm going to do that first. And the seeds are so cute. They're kind of speckly, like a little cattle, like a little cow. I love that, like cowhide. You can see how I spaced them about 1.5 inches to 2 inches apart, all the way down one row, and then all the way down this row. What I do is I just take the bean seed and then I just push it down till I don't see it anymore, and then just cover it in, and that's about 1/2 inch or so. White Sonoran wheat was first brought to Arizona and the Southwest by Spanish missionaries in 1691. This made a stretchy dough that was first used in the development of the flour tortilla. White Sonora was the main variety of wheat available in the West up to the Civil War. This variety is well tolerated by most people who suffer from celiac disease or wheat allergies. Drought tolerant, disease resistant, and highly adaptable. The wheat was used in the creation of communion bread when it was first introduced to the region, but soon became a staple food for the region's inhabitants. The flour was used to make masa or dough for tortillas and shows the influence of the Mexican culture in that region. It's time to plant the white Sonora wheat. And what I've done in this garden is I've loosened up the soil to about the middle of it, and I'm going to do 4 rows. Remember to read the planting directions on your seed packets. It says to plant it at a depth of 1/2 to 1 inch, 1 inch apart. So 4 rows should help with that, and full sun. So make sure you have that too. What started out as putting them 1 inch apart and carefully putting them in the ground ended up being I just drizzled some seeds in. So sometimes that's easier, and then you can thin them later. So you can see the seeds right here. I'll just kind of push them down a little bit, cover them up a little bit. There you have it. I'm a big fan of wheat and can't wait to make some tortillas. We grow food in Texas. So in Texas, collard greens get planted early March and then again in August. So I'm gonna have to wait till the fall to plant those. And then the blue Hubbard squash goes in July 1st. So I'll get those in the ground later. I hope that you enjoy your Plant a Seed kit as much as I do. Get growing and share your progress and harvest with us at Slow Food USA. Use the hashtags Plant a Seed or Snail Kids. We can't wait to watch you grow. I ended up the sprouts got real leggy after like 2 weeks, so I ended up transplanting them in a bigger container. And you know, it can be 95 degrees tomorrow, so putting these out would turn them into straw. So I'm gonna baby them along until they get pretty substantial. And these will actually be fall tomatoes for Texas. We plant our tomatoes at the end of February, beginning of March for the spring, and then we plant them again at the end of May. So, or end of June, first of, you know, in June sometime. So we have fall tomatoes, and actually in the South in Texas, our fall tomatoes do much better than our spring usually because we don't have the same bug cycle and it's not as blasting hot. So these will be our fall tomatoes.
Cool. And that's a good segue into a question that we have. Before, I want to showcase the difference in zones and climates. I'm in Oregon. I'm almost ready to plant these tomatoes. I planted the seeds about a month ago. What I did was I put 4 in each of these guys because many years recycled containers. Because I have some other friends who are also starting seeds, and so we're planning to kind of share our starts so that I have more than one variety of tomato in my garden. You know, that's for like getting more than one variety of tomato into my kitchen, and because maybe I have a friend who's growing my favorite cherry tomatoes, and I'm growing these big juicy Cherokee tomatoes, and so we'll swap a couple starts, and so we can get that variety into our own gardens. Which so many people gardening and growing at home. Ask your friends, see if you can swap around so you can change it up in your own garden too. And to that end, let's answer this question before I'm going to call Lauren in to talk a little bit more about the differences. And the kit has seeds from all over the state. So as Kim has shown, this is the history and the story we know of each seed. These are, of course, you know, it's really hard to track a seed from where it is originally from to where it is now. And seeds adapt as the years go on. We can bring something like the tomato out of its native Peruvian landscape and adapt it to, say, Texas. So it is true that we can adapt seeds to different growing zones, but the very honest truth is that some of your seeds won't do well in some zones. And the one thing that really comes to mind there is that squash. So the cultivators of that squash let us know that this seed might not do awesome in an extremely hot environment. It was really well adapted to the Pacific Northwest and hasn't been around for very long. So while some varieties, like most of the other varieties in the kit, have been around long enough to be adapted to most landscapes and growing zones, that's one that hasn't been around very long. So they said, you know, people in Louisiana might have a hard time successfully growing this squash. It's wet, it's hot, it's such a different climate than the Pacific Northwest. So just to kind of get that answer started, do we expect different growing seasons? Will they grow in all zones? I think it's really interesting to look at where they were originally from, which of course you will find different records depending on where you look. I am personally partial to the Oxford Encyclopedia of Food. It's really interesting and really well researched, giant book. So Lauren and Kim, maybe you can speak more to that I think a lot of this diversity was sort of brought here. It's not ecologically native to the United States. And what's the advantage of adapting it to our landscape and growing these varieties in our landscape? And how does that help contribute to overall biodiversity and the resilience of our plant life?
Well, it came to mind when you were talking about the exchange of transplants with your friends and neighbors, that even when we're talking about planting one crop of one specific crop, the varieties of the crop make a big difference in what we plant. So we know in Central Texas, the type of tomato that does best for us in the intense heat are cherry tomatoes. So they're not as nice to cut and put on sandwiches, but we can get abundance of cherry tomatoes, which we can't always get abundance of the bigger tomatoes, and more garden animals come in later in the summer for the water of the big tomatoes before they're quite ready to harvest to eat. So I think that planting the various varieties, and I love always exchanging with neighbors to make that happen, is really important for all of these plants that we're trying to do. And I love that Slow Food's sending out this new pack of seeds each year for us to experiment with, and things that are successful in our climates. Then we can save those seeds from those plants when possible for the next year. And that's another trick, we teach our kids in our schools, is that if a plant, especially with climate change, if a plant does well one year and we can save the seeds from it, then we can plant that. We'll know that plant's going to do well in our garden again next year in most cases.
Well, and also, gardening is trial and error, and every year is different, even with things that you're successful with. So I think you can learn from failure as well as you can learn from success. And it's important to try it and see what happens. And sometimes it's like that, and you just roll with it and say, I'm never going to plant that again, or this was the best ever. And then the next year it might not be that way, because really climate change has a big impact on it. The bugs that come and go throughout the garden, sometimes the planting of it, squash is really hard to grow in Texas because we have these terrible squash bugs. So I don't typically plant squash until the fall, when the life cycle of that bug has died out. So that's why we'll see what happens with these big honking squash that we have in this kit. But it's a good thing it's a good lesson to learn, is failure too. So teaches you what works and what doesn't.
Excellent. I think that's very true. I think that gardening is a humbling practice. I'm one of those people that likes to be good at everything that I do. And there have been many years that I've just not been that good at gardening, but you just keep trying. And I love that both of you commented on just experimenting with different varieties, see what works, don't assume it won't work because you're not growing it in the place that it was adapted for. And as a side note, I am speaking as an amateur gardener. Kim and Lauren are our experts here. So just to kind of get this home garden perspective, and then complemented with your knowledge and experience is really great. So speaking of kind of seeing what's out there and taking stock of what you have, we're going to move into Lauren's great video that she filmed with her daughter, right? I think that's your daughter, Zelda. And this video, Lauren has a really, really awesome and fun activity to do if you're a kid or if you've got kids around. So if you want to go grab those kids, or if we lost you, if you're 8 and 11, come on back. This is an awesome activity to do when you walk away from your computer this afternoon, like a really cool Earth Day activity, and a great way to take stock of the diversity in your own backyard or garden. Or if you don't have a backyard or garden, Lauren, you can you can back me up, that just like take a cruise around your neighborhood maybe and see what's out there. Use whatever earth you have around you to do this activity. So with that, I'm going to switch over to Lauren's great video. This is about 10 minutes, and we'll come back on after that to answer more questions. So if you have questions, continue to put them in that Q&A, and we'll toggle back over there as soon as this wraps. So here we go.
Hi, I'm Lauren Zappone Maples from PEAS in Austin, Texas. PEAS stands for Partners for Education, Agriculture, and Sustainability, and we are an affiliate of Slow Food School Gardens Network. Hi, I'm Lauren Zappone Maples from PEAS in Austin, Texas. PEAS stands for Partners for Education, Agriculture, and Sustainability, and we are an affiliate of Slow Food School Gardens Network. And so we're out here today. We're going to share a lesson with you on biodiversity in celebration of the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. Happy Earth Day, everyone! If you're seeing this and it's not Earth Day, that's okay, because every day is Earth Day. What is biodiversity? Bio means life. Diversity is a variety. So biodiversity is looking at the variety of life on this planet. Each animal, plant, and organism plays its own role. It has its own niche or its own job on our planet. And each organism is a part of a complex food system or food web. When we are talking about planting food, crops, for example, it's important to have a variety of crops planted in one place, because that'll help us keep pests away. If we only have one crop and a certain infestation of bugs comes in to eat it, it's going to be able to thrive on that one crop. If we have a pest that only likes a particular plant, if that plant is surrounded by other plants, the pest will not be able to spread as far and to do as much damage to a larger crop area. All right, so today Zelda and I are going to lead you in an activity in our backyard to go see the different varieties of life that we have here. We're going to look for plants, both cultivated and wild. Cultivated are things we put here ourselves, and wild are things that were just growing here when we got here. We will also be looking to see what kind of animals and insects are around here.
Here's our first sign of an animal, a mockingbird.
Zelda, what do you have to show us?
I brought you guys over to these bricks to look under them to see if there's any insects or evidence that they were once here.
All right, let's take a look. What do you see?
A snail shell, empty or full. Pretty sure it's empty, but that's a sign that there was once a snail.
What else do we have? Ooh. Do you see that guy in there? Can you get him out?
The roly-poly.
Yeah.
He just rolled up.
Oh, he's living. He's rolled up. Oops, he's blurry. So that's two. We have evidence of a snail, and we have a roly-poly that we found. Let's go look for some. Hey, what'd you find over here?
Oh, I just found some more snail shells. So sign that they were here once. And then over here, I looked under this log and found a beetle, but I guess it ran away.
What did it look like? Should we look some more?
It looks like a baby cockroach.
Ew. They all play an important role. I bet that beetle is helping to break down this wood.
Here's some cobwebs.
Ooh, that means what lives here?
Spiders.
Spiders live here. All these guys are helping with our FBI, our fungus, our bacteria, and our invertebrates, and they are decomposing this log for us and turning it into some really nice, rich soil. Hey, Zelda, check this out. I found bird poop.
Score!
That means there must have been a bird in this area recently. Let's go look by our compost pile and see if we find anything back here.
Sort of larva-like bug, insect, crawling through this dirt.
Okay, we're here on the edge of the compost heap, and we're going to dig around and see what we can find in this nutrient-rich soil. Just saw some little beetles skitter by. Let's see what else we... Ooh!
Is that a grub?
Yay! That's a grub. Found a little tiny grub worm, which is most likely the larva for a June bug. gonna dig a little more and see if there's anything else good down here. We suspect, though we haven't seen any yet, that there are probably some earthworms living close by because they tend to like our compost pile. Ooh, what is that? Some other type of larva. Ooh, we got a bigger grubworm. Yay! All right, now we're gonna do an audit or a count of our cultivated plants, things that we put here intentionally. So we're gonna take a look at our garden. Right here, we have a zucchini, and it's starting to put on a little baby here. And we have a lot of other flowers that, once they're pollinated, can put on more zucchini. Next door here, we have a squash plant. Over here, we have some beans growing. Next, we have a pepper plant. So we're already up to 4 different varieties. In the middle over here, we planted some oregano. We also put in this pretty flower, this red flower. That adds to the chance that pollinators will come by and visit and pollinate our garden. That's another important piece of biodiversity, is planting pollinators with your garden, so you can ensure that the bees and butterflies will come by and help pollinate our plants. Now over here, we have some onions, some green onions. And our other garden is planted with very similar things. Let's go look and see what we have in the front yard. All right, over here we have some yarrow. It's kind of this fuzzy looking plant here, and it's starting to put on some little flowers this spring. We have motherwort. It is a medicinal plant. Over here we have some sage, and it is at the time of the year where the sage is in bloom. Next, we have an elderberry tree. It's just getting going. It's about 3 feet tall, but it'll grow much taller. And down here, we have the tiniest little sprout of some echinacea that is just taking off for the spring.
You want to show us now?
Let's go see what kind of trees we have growing back here. We have a loquat tree. We have an elm. Over here, we have a bur oak. Over here, we have a Texas persimmon. Back here, we have a mimosa. And come over this way. We have a crepe myrtle. And a mulberry. On our backyard hunt, we found 17 plants and 7 animals or insects, or evidence of animals and insect. We decided that since we only found cultivated plants today, that we will look for wild plants on another day. For an extra activity at the end of this, if you would like to make a collage of all the biodiversity you find in your yard or your neighborhood, please send us your pictures and put @peas_community so we can see what you've found in your life. Thank you for joining us today on our backyard biodiversity hunt. Happy hunting to you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Welcome.
That is excellent. I want to let you add anything to that if you'd like to. I have a couple of questions for you for the activity.
Absolutely. Well, I was just going to add that the activity does not have to be done with digital technology. When we do this in schools, we usually have the kids draw their collage of what they're finding. First do a tally, and then they pick specific organisms that they want to highlight, and they draw their collage.
Awesome. And do I need to be able to identify the plant to count it as a new variety if I can tell that it's different?
Absolutely not. That's where our drawings or our pictures come into play, because then we can say, we notice this is different than this other plant because maybe the leaf structure or, you know, the flowers look different. When I'm identifying stuff in the wild, I know very little about the names of those things. So we just identify them by striking characteristics. And sometimes we make up funny names for them, like the pointy pokey plant or something like that.
Awesome. And then if I have more than one variety of the same species, say I have cherry tomatoes and that Cherokee purple, do I get to count them as two?
Yes, you do.
Perfect.
Sometimes it's hard to
lies
tell at the beginning stages of the plants which varieties they are, but as they grow, you'll notice subtleties like differences in the shade of green, or one might get taller quicker than the other. So those are other ways you can identify them.
Awesome. Great. So we're going to do a special little thing for this activity because we love it and we want you guys to go out and do it. We're going to give away 2 plant-a-seed kits to folks that submit that collage. So you've got to post it on social media and tag the Peas community. We'll send a follow-up email with all this info so you don't have to remember it right away. Tag the Peas community and Slow Food USA, and then you're going to hashtag Snail Kids. Tell us how many varieties you found in your hunt, and then send that collage our way. So you can send it to us in an email or post it on social media, and then we're going to send a couple free plant-a-seed kits to the first couple people that send it in with all of the required pieces. So really, we just want to see what you've got out there, and we want to know that you did the hunt and had a good time with it. And I love this hunt because it's a really great way to notice. If you only came up with 2 or 3, that's fine, but it's an awesome opportunity to put more varieties into your yard or garden. And I also do want to mention, and hope that you guys can expand on it, that this biodiversity is also really good for the insect life. Like some of the insects that Lauren and Zelda were noticing, a lot of those are all drawn to that environment because of the variety and the biodiversity there. And same goes for bees and butterflies and all the hummingbirds and pretty things we like to see in our garden. I get so excited when I find worms in my soil. It's like I suddenly am 3 years old and I'm just over the moon about it because I know it means it's good soil. And then I start to think, oh, but I need to get all sorts of other stuff in here. So that's just another reason why biodiversity is so important, because we have to remember that we are either supporting or creating an environment for other life, and all of which was there before us. So it's super important, and the plants need the insects and the animals and the trees, and the animals need the trees, and it's all connected. So I think that's a really good showcase of why biodiversity is so important, and to think about the animal life in your, or insect life in your world as well. So I'm noticing that we're getting close to the hour, and I just want to see if anyone else has any more questions we can answer. You can throw them in the Q&A, or just let you know that we will follow up with that email, give you little directions to enter the contest, send you links to Lauren and Kim's projects, and a recording of this video so you can jump back in if you'd like to, if you forgot something, you want to be reminded of something. And again, the Plant a Seed campaign is going on right now. We're almost out of kits. We're doing our best to get them to folks like Kim and Lauren, who are working really hard in a very unordinary time to get those seeds planted so that they can reach groups of students and young people that can get excited about them. So we're really appreciative of the support. When you buy a Plant a Seed kit, we send one to a school garden for free. So it's kind of a one-to-one program, and your support is crucial. And thank you, Ibti, for mentioning the Arc of Taste. This is an important thing to talk about. So in DC, you said we've been promoting the fish chili peppers as a local Arc of Taste varietal. This seems to me like a really fun and beloved variety. We have a mixologist who's actually coming on Slow Food Live tomorrow to show us how to ferment ginger beer, and he makes a cocktail with this fish pepper. And he uses all Arc of Taste varieties to kind of promote and expose those varieties. The Arc of Taste is Slow Food International's list of endangered varieties, and those are both plants and animals, as well as processes. So there is a production process for something called a hoshigaki persimmon. It's a very particular way of curing a persimmon that comes from Japan, and the process itself is the thing that's in the Arc of Taste. The fish chili is in there. All 6 of the varieties in the Arc of Taste kit, or excuse me, in the Plant of Seed kit that Kim showed you, all 6 of those are in the Arc of Taste. So the Arc of Taste is a really fun sort of directory to check out. If you just want to kind of get excited about a new variety, you can type in squash and see all of them that come up, and maybe one of them interests you, and then you can find the seeds for that variety. The idea behind the Ark of Taste is that in cultivating and using these varieties, that we will support their survival and their being carried into the future, which takes both the farmer and you in your kitchen, or a chef in his or her kitchen. And we have a whole Chefs Alliance of Slow Food USA that's really committed to using Ark of Taste varieties in their kitchen so that they stay around. If there's no demand for a variety, it stops being produced commercially, and then eventually it goes away. So the idea behind the Ark of Taste is promote those varieties in your life and in your world, and just kind of tell those stories. They're really, some of them are really, really interesting. The Navajo churro sheep, for example, is a sheep that is not native to the United States, but was adopted by indigenous people in what is now the United States, and it became a really important animal species for them. So check that out. We'll send that in the email as well. And I hope this has been good and interesting for everyone. Biodiversity is a huge topic. I mean, you could do a PhD in biodiversity and still not cover everything. So our hope is that this is a kid-friendly introduction to biodiversity and planting seeds. And I'm really grateful to Kim and Lauren for joining us today. I'm going to toss it back to you two to see if there's anything you want to add before we wrap this up.
Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. This was great. And yeah, if anybody has any questions or is looking for resources related to school gardens, I know Kim is open, and I'm also open to answering those questions and steering people in the right direction. I will also share, we have a distance learning page with a lot of video activities for kids. So I'll share that with you, and you can share that through the newsletter as well.
Excellent. Uh-oh.
Oh, Kim, you're muted.
Myself, I know, I show my age with technology. We do have a distance learning page as well, and I'll share that too, and Facebook and all the Insta and all those things.
Excellent. Kim and Lauren, thank you so much for your time and energy today. We're really grateful to you. All of our Slow Food Live presenters are doing this because they want to, and because they are generous and wonderful people. So we really appreciate you being here and all the effort you've put into this. To all of you who joined us today, thanks for being here, and keep an eye out for that email and enter that contest. Get your kids out hunting, or go do that hunt and enter that contest and show us what you came up with, and we'll send that as soon as we can so you can follow up there. Thanks for joining us today. I do want to mention that our next Thursday session is all about seed saving. So this came up as a question, but we have a whole hour on seed saving with some veteran seed savers, which is another really important element of increasing biodiversity, is hanging on to the seeds and getting them out in the world the next year. So join us again next Thursday for that session. That will be posted on the landing page by Friday, so keep an eye out for that. You can join the newsletter. We send a weekly rundown of what's to come with Slow Food Live in the week ahead. So thank you all for being here today. Happy planting, and we'll see you next time.